Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Informed Chiropractor. This is Dr. Don MacDonald, your host. We're getting close to the end of 2025. I just got back from the CNAC conference in Toronto, and it was awesome. Great to see so many people, like all the chiropractors across Canada, who've kind of formed together to create a new association, which would help to support our brand of chiropractic. And so it was great to see all of you out there. Now, one of the common questions we were just attending this seminar, so we were just enjoying the people and the content, and but we had lots of conversations with people. And so one of the biggest conversations I had with a few people who were just not really understanding what the polyvagal theory of the vagus nerve has to do with chiropractic, and just not that they weren't open to it, it's just that they just didn't understand it. So I thought I'd just do a little episode just on kind of diving into the vagus nerve, what it is, what it isn't, and why chiropractic are probably the number one profession in the world that can help with getting the nervous system into a regulated state, and the popularity of it right now. And so the thing is just like practice member education. If you have two different ways to go down. One is to teach a whole new concept to a practice member that they've never understood before, if they're more into like the mechanistic view of things or the pathogenic model of healthcare. And then we try to enlighten them on the salutogenic idea of healthcare or proactive forms of healthcare. It's a lot easier for us to relate it to something that they already know. That's why, me and Brand, you're like the king and queen of analogies, because we want to find out something that they already know, but then be able to link that to our new way of thinking, because it's just a lot easier to link something else to what you already know than to start from scratch and try to create a whole new belief system on its own. So that's why this polyvagal theory and this climb of interest in the vagus nerve and nervous system regulation around the world is kind of like that perfect timing. So I heard before, I think the definition of luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And so chiropractors have been preparing for 130 years, and now there's a nice opportunity. So instead of us always having to trailblaze and push our kind of our philosophy of health onto a population that might not be initially so receptive to it, what we can find is we find that the whole population is already riding this wave of nervous system regulation, vagus nerve, on how to become regulated and how to become connected. And so this is already an energy that is growing in the community. And so it's very easy for us to just like, I heard somebody the other day. Oh, it was Eddie Murphy. We're watching the Eddie Murphy documentary, and he said he's not a rower, he is a sailor. And so that's a very good comment, I would like to think, because often in chiropractic, we feel like we're a rower, which just means like we are like forcing ourselves through the water, like we're pushing, and if as soon as we stop rowing, we stop. Or you can become a sailor, and what a sailor does is a sailor finds out which way the wind is blowing, and then we set up our sails so that we can go along with the wind. And it also conserves our energy as well. So that's why I think this is such a vital component, because not only does it help us as chiropractors understand what we do as chiropractors, it not only helps us to improve our technique when we're adjusting people, it not only improves our communication style of how people can understand what chiropractic is through this polyvagal lens, but the people in general are going along this road anyway. So it's kind of like it's the three streams that are all attaching at the same time. So that's why I really wanted to kind of dive in one episode just about the vagus and the polyvagal theory. So the first part, why is everybody suddenly talking about the vagus nerve? Now, if you go and look in Google and you start to look up search volumes for the vagus nerve and regulation, it's starting to skyrocket. And this is especially post-pandemic, because you have people who are having anxiety, burnout, gut issues, sleep problems. All of these things are frustrating the public. So they're starting to look online because they're looking for solutions, because obviously drugs, and what currently is available in the healthcare system is not working. They're feeling dysregulated. They're resonating with the word dysregulated. They're resonating with the word regulated. And they're trying to find a way that they can get into a regulated state. That's why this is being searched so much through the internet. And again, the vagus nerve is becoming that one word explanation for these people who are looking for a solution that are in a dysregulated state. but it's often very oversimplified, as you could probably tell by just looking online. The medical field is now jumping online because they're looking at vagus nerve stimulation, and they're using this for people who have migraines, epilepsy, uh, treating depression. Like this is what the medical system is doing through vagus nerve stimulation. So there's like tons of interest as far as if you're in that condition state from the medical field. And people are now Googling how to improve vagal tone. So people are actually understanding this. And I don't know if you've noticed this. I've noticed this in my practice where people come in and they tell me it's my vagus nerve. Or sometimes they'll go to their medical doctor and then my medical doctor might even say that it's their vagus nerve. And so this is a big opportunity for chiropractic where people are already coming in with a language that they're starting to learn online. And it just doesn't take very much at all for us to be able to link that right into chiropractic. So, what is the vagus nerve, what it is and what it actually isn't? And there's a lot of misunderstandings about this. So, the first thing is that the vagus nerve is, again, it's the largest cranial nerve. We know it doesn't go through the spine. However, it is intimately connected to the spine and the nervous system. We now know that it's 75% of the parasympathetic nervous system. So we all know as chiropractors, when we wanted to get in the old model, get someone parasympathetic, we definitely want to know about this parasympathetic or the vagus nerve because it's 75% of the parasympathetic nervous system. The other thing that's extremely interesting is it's 80% sensory. So that means it's mostly body to brain. So it's body up. And that is very key information for us to understand, especially when we're adjusting. What it does is it drives our heart rate variability, our digestion, our social engagement, our inflammatory response, our ability to recover, how much resilience we have as a human being. Like there's a lot of stuff that's going to be involved with this. And how it fits in perfectly with the polyvagal theory is that we have those three levels of the nervous system. So there's these three different states that make the hierarchy. And I'm just reviewing this. A lot of you have heard this before, but the goal is that ventral vagal state. So this is the parasympathetic state we'd have initially, we're always trying to achieve in chiropractic, where we want them to be parasympathetic. But the ventral vagal means we are primarily being parasympathetic without threat. So we do not have a threat response. That means that we are socially connected. That means that our nervous system is in a regulated state. Our social engagement system is online, and we're able to communicate very freely with other people and collaborate. Now, when threat is perceived in the nervous system, whether it's actually there or not, we first will fire the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. That's our protective and activate. So we're going to protect ourselves. We're going to run away. We're going to attack. We're going to do something active, and then subconsciously underneath our awareness, if we find that's not going to help anymore, we go into the dorsal vagal state, and that's more the shutdown, overwhelm, like circuit breaker energy conference conservation. And again, this is the one that we've seen mostly post-pandemic, where people are coming in and you can tell that they're not in a good state, but they don't look like they're stressed out. They just look like they have no affect on their face, and they're just kind of like just totally, we call it offline. They're just not even connected. Now, the vagus nerve is not a switch. And so this is the one thing that's hard, like we said, for people to study the vagus nerve as well, because it is really tuned into the autonomic nervous system and it's more of a network effect rather than a linear effect. Somatic nerves are easy to study because they're linear, A plus B equals C. The network effect of the autonomic nervous system is like, it's like a network computer, right? Where the benefit of it is that if everything's regulated, you can have multiple things attack the system and it can handle it no problem. The challenge is if it's been attacked long enough so that it's kind of at the end of its ability to hold things together, all we need is one or two things and it throws everything right off kilter. So it's like a parabolic curve, the way that the network effect happens in the autonomic nervous system. And so I always say it's almost like a volume control. It's not an on-off switch. So that's the other thing that we have to realize as well. And because it's mostly sensory, it's actually surveilling the physiology of our body all the time, looking for cues of danger. And that doesn't necessarily mean the cues of danger have to be present at the moment. They just have to be giving off cues of danger from the physiology in our body. And so in chiropractic, in the green books, they always talk about the brain cell to the tissue cell. And also Dr. Bruce Lipton, I remember listening to him a long time ago where he talked about the brain of the cell actually was the cell membrane, because the cell membrane is what's picking up all the information from the environment, and it's determining how that cell is going to respond to the environment. Because if it's picking up the danger, it's going to be that's going to be the key driver. So we have to remember that when our physiology has responded to a threat and we have not put cues of safety back in after that threat has gone, that response stays. And when that response stays, it's still sending off threat response to the brainstem on a regular basis, even when it's gone. And so when that was a big part of the MacDonald safety corridor, is that we're trying to like not only remove that threat, adjust the subluxations, but we're also trying to figure out a nice way to put in safety cues back into the nervous system, to basically get that physiology and that tissue cell just to kind of get back into that relaxed state. Now, vagus nerve stimulation. If you've been to a couple of our seminars, you've talked about how that kind of, it's funny. I was reading a book about it and it was driving me a little bit crazy because they're just so shocked that if you put electrical current in through the vagus nerve, it kind of temporarily regulates the nervous system. But I always say it's not really addressing what's causing it to be dysregulated in the first place. So it's kind of like an almost a false sense of it's being regulated. But but yeah, what they're basically doing is they are putting a nerve stimulator on the neck, and they're sending it up to the brain, and they're finding that they're treating people who have migraines, IBS, anxiety, heart rate problems, inflammatory, high inflammatory markers. And one of the funny things when I was listening to this one book, they were talking about it, and they were so shocked that if they had migraine people and they did vagus nerve stimulation, if the migraines improved, it also happened to improve very often their anxiety, and also happened to improve very much their IBS. And then they're saying, hey, there must be a link here. And as a chiropractor, we're like, duh. Of course, there's a link here. We always know that there's a link. But this gives us a huge advantage when we were talking to the public, because they're reading about all this stuff. So they're coming in and they're already kind of understanding that there is a network effect to the nervous system. And when we start to give these solutions, you'll see often on a first and second visit, their eyes just kind of open up going like, oh, yes, I know. I understand this. So where does chiropractic fit in with this, and why does it matter more than ever? Um, I always say that when the spine moves well, when we're free of subluxation, we optimize the afferent signals to improve that ability to be aware of the body. The brain starts to make safer predictions because it's actually accurate. We always talk about the Wi-Fi phenomenon, is that when we're subluxated, it's almost like having sketchy Wi-Fi. So we're not picking up that live streaming moment to moment information from the nervous system that's accurate. And when that happens, it makes it harder for the nervous system to predict what's going on, because it's not dealing with accurate information. And also, when we have a proper tone in the nervous system, that means we are getting more communication to the brain, because the more communication we get to the brain, the more accurate we have of where our body is in space, and the more accurate information we have in the nervous system, the more we get into a regulated state. I always talk about people, if you've been asked to do a big project and you haven't got enough information, it's very stressful, because you're always worried you're not going to be able to either find out what the problem is or find out what the solution is, because you're stressed out because you don't have enough information. So that's why it's so vitally important for us to be subluxation free, for the segmental subluxation to to ultimately help to improve the global subluxation, which is that regulated versus dysregulated state. And again, for us older chiropractors who kind of went into that mindset, sympathetic's bad, parasympathetic's good, we understand in this whole framework is that we're labeling things that shouldn't be labeled. So if you are in a sympathetic state, but you are not firing your stress response, that's play. And that's actually really fun. That's like when we're, live streaming in the zone in a chiropractic office, adjusting from one person to the next, and you're just kind of you're just flowing. You're sympathetic, but you're also connected because the ventral vagus is still online too. It's like under the influence of the ventral vagus while we're pairing those two states together. And then the same thing happens in that dorsal vagal, as long as we don't have the threat response. That's like intimacy, relaxing, recovering, hanging out with a pet. Like those are all those really good states that we want to be in, because we're in a connected state, but we're also pairing it with those two things. So, so again, we always want we always say spine first when we're talking about this too, because we're never amplifying anything more important than the chiropractic adjustment, because the chiropractic adjustment is the most important thing. We are just like back, we're bookending it on both sides with cues of safety. And again, there's lots of other things that are involved too, as far as like even the state of mind for the chiropractor, because again, the whole polyvagal theory talks about why we need to be in a proper state before we even see someone, because it totally affects the nervous system. Because our our cell membranes are basically communicating with other people's cell membranes, and if we are sending out those cues of danger, we that's not going to help with our care. The great thing about chiropractic is it enhances interoception, and this is super important because this is the better awareness of self. So a lot of people you'll see when they're under care, they actually start making different decisions about themselves, often make different decisions about healthcare, because when they're in that more regulated, connected state, they actually have an ability to connect to themselves, and that is huge. Again, creating predictability. We already talked about that Wi-Fi connection. We want to make sure that it's live time so that we know what's going on. And then this also increases the body's ability to connect with other people. And when you connect with other people and help to get them more regulated, they almost give you that same feedback. So it's almost like it's a positive feedback loop. So when people come in, they're often saying, it's my vagus nerve. What can I do to improve my vagus nerve? Or chiropractors are always asking also, is there stuff we can say that practice members could do at home to help improve the vagal tone? And the great thing is there are three main things that help to improve vagal tone. And the funny thing is chiropractic is vital for all three of these. So whenever anyone's asking you in your practice, you'll be going, well, you get adjusted first, and then we can do some of these things on top of it. So the number one thing is movement. We need movement in order for us to get live time connected to our body, to get out of that threat response so that we can get more in a regulated state. And again, this is going to be our spine, and this is going to be our rib cage, which will tee into the next one, diaphragm and our viscera. We want all that moving. Even that, like that's why we do viscera work too, is because we need even the viscera to be moving in a proper tone, because that's constantly giving good feedback to the brain. And that's what I think that vagus nerve stimulation is replacing, is that when someone's in a threat state and they have threat physiology through their visceral cavity, everything is basically glued together, and we're not getting that information back up through the vagus nerve because it's a surveillance system and it's not surveilling anything. And when there's nothing going on, that's a threat. So that's danger. The second thing is breath. We know a lot of chiropractors love to do breath work. However, we need to make sure that the rib cage is actually able to fully extend. So that's why through the MacDonald safety corridor, we do focus through on so much on rib cage expansion and rib movement, because we've had many chiropractors, even in our group, who've been subluxated, and they go to say like a retreat where they do like breathing exercises, and then they actually have to take a break because it's actually almost like causing a threat response. Because if you're breathing deliberately and deeply, and the rib cage is restricted, that's actually going to create a danger cue. So we always want to make sure that, again, and that goes with posture too. Posture needs to be open, rib cage need to move, just so that we have that nice easy input, so that we're not creating trauma by trying to improve our vagal tone. And then the last one is connection. So connection is so important. Like Brandy goes into it. She basically teach like a 2-day seminar on the importance of co-regulation, and how we, as a babies, they can't self-regulate at all, and they are 100% dependent on a safe co-regulator to help almost lead. They need another healthy nervous system to lead their nervous system into learning even how to be in a regulated state. And if this never happens, then a lot of people as they get older, they have to realize it is more of a challenge to get into that regulated state. And that's what we say, like a lot of our practice members, we might be their only co-regulator, safe co-regulator, that they have. And so there's such a huge responsibility for us to really understand this, because if we can get someone to become more safe and regulated, they actually become a leader for every single person in their network, in their community. And so that's why chiropractic, the good vibes literally spread. And that's why it's so important. So, I just wanted to kind of have a segment that we could kind of like tie all that together, just to understand a little bit more about the vagus nerve, and especially with how much it's being searched. If you have a podcast, if you have a blog, on your website, if you have um, even like social media stuff, posting some stuff about this and vagal tone, and even going through the three things of like what you can actually do to support your vagal tone, and then talk about we need to be able to move. And if you're subluxated, you can't move, and you need to be able to breathe. And if you can't move your rib cage, then you can't breathe properly. And if you are in a dysregulated state, and if anything that you do can help you get regulated, that helps you become more social to connect to other people. And people will notice that as long as we are helping to that's another big thing we focus on in the MacDonald Safety Corridor is really focusing on teaching them how to become more interoceptive. So how to get their brain to focus in a little bit more on their body so that they actually can feel what that difference is between a regulated and a dysregulated state. Because like at the end of every adjustment, I always want to say, how do you feel? And I want them to feel, I feel lighter, I feel more connected. Like those are the things we're feeling. We're not saying, oh, my back pain is 0.3% better, which often it is, but I really want them to focus into what is your state feeling when they leave. I almost want, like I said, them vibrating with relaxation or just feeling like a buzz of connection. Like those are the words that we're really looking for as we're trying to help them improve that interoceptive ability. And then again, when they're looking online and seeing all these things about the polyvagal theory, all things about regulation, then they can really understand why chiropractic is so important for them to get into that state. So we can still talk about all the other stuff we do in our chiropractic lingo, but I just find that this is such a easy way to connect the benefits of chiropractic care to what's going on in the public right now, and especially post COVID. So many people are dysregulated in that shutdown state that they are looking for help. Like they know something's wrong and they are searching it. And so that's why if you just look at some of these search volumes, I think chiropractic could take a huge opportunity by jumping on this because, like I said, we use we're the sail. We're going to be the sailboats because chiropractic is all about spinal efficiency and nervous system efficiency, and so we should be about that as well as we're trying to get our message to the masses in the public. We want to kind of almost find out what's the wave out there, what wave is out there that people are already interested in, and how can we connect it to what our message is, which is helping people be regulated, connected. And basically, that's the way you help humanity. I think BJ Palmer even said, you get people under care, you're going to empty the jails, you're going to empty the insane asylums and the people who have like a lot of psychological issues. Well, we know now that if someone's in a more regulated state more often, they are going to be less likely to be rude and mean, and they are going to be less likely to have anxiety and tension. Not that we treat that as we know in our regulated countries, but we can still tie that into properly moving spine and rib cage and those things we can totally say in our regulated countries. So hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm just working on we're working on our PowerPoints for Toronto. We still have a couple seats left. That's going to be that first weekend in December for our TIC Super Conference with Dr. Peter Amlinger, and we're very excited about that. I'm going to be talking about the rhythms of the spine. And as you all know, I love some good avatars. So we're going to be talking about some different rhythms we'll see coming into the office as far as that the regulation goes. So we're going to try to kind of tie in some of these new states into an avatar so that you can notice them a lot quicker. We have chiropractic assistants coming as well because we know an office that works the best is going to be really teamed up between the chiropractic assistants and the chiropractors so that we can be prepared of who's coming in, make sure the environment's in that nice, safe, predictable manner so that by the time they get to the adjusting table, they're already in a better state so that your adjustments lands better, which helps to amplify the regulation of your adjustment, which helps to hold the adjustment even longer. And yeah, it's just the more we learn about this, the more we go down the rabbit hole, and the more I see this in our practice, and I see in other chiropractors that have implemented it. It's just this is amazing stuff. So if we don't see you in Toronto, we'll be coming out with our schedule into next year here, and I'm sure we're going to be doing a first level MacDonald Safety Corridor in Canada in the beginning of the next year. We're very excited to be speaking. New Zealand is doing a Lyceum on April 18th in Calgary, and we hope all the people that we saw in CNAC will be coming out, especially in Canada. Anybody who is in our model of care, please come out. And see us there. We'll be speaking at that one, and Yeah, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. I got a couple of really cool interviews coming up with a couple of college presidents in our model, and we'll be sharing some good news about how we are spreading our style of chiropractic to the students and the new chiropractors coming in, and hopefully getting everybody regulated so that we have a collective power to change our cities and our communities. So, hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.